Welcome back to the Hoosier Garage. So in this portion of our whole series on the 72 Dodge Tradesman B200 van, new idler arms, got a different steering box from the junkyard, but with the situation with that, if you want to ask me a question about why, we'll go into that later, but we just got a different one, put it in much more solid. And one of the issues we had was the inner tie rod on one side was completely worn. Actually, part of the ball stud was broken on it as well. So I went in a search on the internet and the local parts stores to see what they had. And I think those inner tie rods for those is 71 through 77 only, or maybe even 75. So the window of what was used on the vans is much smaller than a lot of the other stuff. So these are very expensive. I saw some of them for about 80, 90 a piece. Some of them were about 60 a piece. One gentleman on eBay, and this is out of Manalapan. Sorry if I mentioned that wrong or said it wrong. New Jersey. Manalapan, New Jersey. And they seem to have some vintage stuff. This is the invoice. About $110 to have it shipped. And the cool thing is, it is all original. And when I mean original, this is actually what you call NOS parts. This was on the shelf at a Chrysler dealership at one point, I'm sure. Has the sticker on it, Mopar. Has the part number 3579506 and 3579505. So it's a left and a right. And these have been opened, but they have not been used. So you're getting original factory quality on this. So that's a good thing. And we have not just the rod itself, but the cotter pin comes in this little sealed paper bag here. And here is the actual piece. And it has the 3-prong castle nut. And it's got some Cosmoline on it. So that's original parts. And we got, you know, I think this one, it's got the little bit of a bend in it here. The other one, it kind of goes, yeah, it goes the other way. It's a symmetrical piece, mirror image. So we're good on these, and I'll have to pull the tie rod sleeve off of the other one and clean them up, install these, keep these boxes. That's cool. Have them, lay them up on the shelf, and it'll add to the ambiance of the original parts that we have laying all over the shop in the back. So. One thing I'll show you, I don't know if everybody does this, if it's just a common thing. I just know that how I deal with it, especially when you're worried about getting an alignment. One thing my dad showed me is this. Here's the old tie rod that was on the side that was broken. See, the ball stud's broken up here. But if you notice where the grease stops and all the dirt that accumulated on it, it stops about right here. Well, that's a good indicator. If you go screwing the new one on, you can either put you a piece of tape around it here, you can compare it, the ends, and then what you can do, as long as you got everything centered right, it's all checks out, being a factory part, that's where you want it. You can take you a piece of tape and see here's where the edge that was buried from here forward into the tie rod sleeve. So you can put this tape right here on it, and you know you can bury this into the sleeve up to that point right there. You can wrap it all the way around, make sure it's, you know, not crooked or anything. And that'll get your alignment at least within a few degrees of where it needs to be. If you got a problem with it after that, then obviously you can take it in and have it fixed. But sometimes we've done it this way, and track's fine, wear's fine, no big deal. Control arms, that can be a different situation. Sometimes they need to move around, but a tie rod, that's what I do, and it works pretty well. So you just go up to the old mark. So don't throw these away immediately, and don't clean them immediately. Use that as evidence. So we'll move forward. don't even know if I've ever had the front wheel off this thing. Yeah, but now we have. We had them before, we have now. I'm going to grab a jack stand. So it's, pretty easy to access here. I'm just kind of looking around here a second. I know one thing we'll have to do is do some rust proofing, where I added some metal here earlier in last year after I bought it, and make this a new flexible splash shield here. Because if it had one, it's gone. If it never did, then it needs one. But you can access the oil filter right here, and a lot of the bolts for the exhaust and all that kind of stuff. That's cool. And you'll have to refinish these wheel wells also, but that's down the road, neither here nor there at the moment. Joints fairly well used, but I think it's good to go for now. Even if a few months from now, if we got to replace, we'll replace it then. I want to get the sleeve, and I think actually what I'll do is I will go ahead and just put the part in there, and then we'll clean the rest up later. We'll just worry about that part later. I know, clean it now because it's pretty isolated from the rest of this. So those inners are pretty long. It'll extend all the way up to here, stick in there, and then screw in here. But we could screw it on first and show you the method like we did, or we put the tape around it or make a mark, or what Dad always did was he would just screw it in and compare it to the other one and go to the same depth. So. Alright, so now I got to do a quick comparison here because there's two different part numbers, so they cock over in a different direction. This is the one that was on this side. It's the only one I've taken off. And we compare them, and the difference is mainly here. It kind of comes down and kicks that way. If you hold grease fitting to grease fitting, they have the same angle on them. When you hold the other one out, it goes the opposite way. So this is the one for this side. Go ahead and set this off. And I'm going to put just a little bit of WD in there. Like so. And we'll start. Now some of these are a reverse thread. And I think this is one of them. I couldn't remember which way I had to turn the other one out. Yep. Reverse thread on this side. And that's to help you, you put them in there evenly with this one, and that way you can turn the sleeve and you can either draw them in or draw them out. And it gives you your adjustment on your tie rods so that you don't have to take it all back apart to do it. So we get it down to where the tape just touches the tie rod sleeve, right about there. Compared to this one here. Yeah, so it sets at that depth. You might have to turn it one way or the other. We need to do a turn like this so that it goes into the center link properly. A chance to clean all this stuff off. Since this cotter pin's been in here since probably before I was even born, we'll give it the right respect and open it for all eyes to see. All right, so we got that guy tight. We got this one at the depth it needs to be. This is can't see all of it, but the nut here, I just spun it on there. This is for the drag link that comes from the steering box. So I need to tighten that down, run a pin through it, and then we'll jump around to the driver's side and get that one taken out and the new one put in, and et cetera, et cetera. This one's been on here for a minute. I'm gonna let this soak for 15 minutes or so. Take a crack at that. And go from there. And of course, when we get all these new parts in and we'll check everything else, we'll re-grease everything. It's a good chance that, actually no, none of the other stuff has been greased in at least 15 years, as the whole van has just been sitting for that long. Same thing on this one. You'll see enough of a caked up grease line to where it went into the sleeve. You can take the other one, compare it as you drive it in there, and you'll put it in the same ballpark, if not right on the dot. Here's our new one. Sure we are. Had a sleeve on it, but yeah, that's fine. Reverse thread again, which is always weird trying to get it started. It seems like everything's so backwards. You can do it. There we go. Wow. Touchy. Now we know what goes on there. Pretty good ways. Nut back on it. Good thing about these is they're really easy to get to, especially when you turn the suspension all the way around. And I don't know what changed on the later year brands where they quit using this particular one. Maybe they evened it out. They made them the same length or something. I know on the cars, at least the A-body Mopars, you'll get this one and this one are the same. They're interchangeable, inner and outer. Last I checked, at least. Last I remember. So, and this rod was a bit longer. So we are about there, I would say another 1/4 inch. Couple more turns. Of course, it needs to face toward that. About there. And you can either come down here where the grease fitting is, or you can even, as long as the thread depth on it is the same, in this case it is, you can come to the bottom of each thread series there and drive it into where it needs to. Get this ready. the nut. Here, a cotter pin, and again, need the ceremonial opening. Brand new, from like 1970 something. Get all the joints back together, all the nuts tightened down, cotter pins in place, even the ones that we didn't replace but we had to disconnect. We made sure that we went back and looked at those so we down the road don't leave them off and have a massive accident. We'll have to take these back off soon anyways when we get into the brakes. We barely have any brake pedal at all. It isn't until you get all the way to the floor until it finally decides to kick in. They're a four-wheel drum, big drums, but they're four-wheel drum. So we'll have to service that, get them nice and tight and even. And maybe down the road we'll switch to disc, but we'll just see how it rolls. Being a shorty 3/4 ton van, it's not ridiculously heavy. And these are not on a full frame like a lot of other vans. They are a unibody chassis. So that keeps weight down quite a bit too. It's got a K-frame just like a lot of the cars. It's just a different style. It's obviously not interchangeable. And being the short wheelbase van, you just don't have as much extra sheet metal to deal with. The wheelbase is only 2 inches longer than the Duster. It's a 109 versus a 107. And the overall length is about the same. If anything, the van might even be a little bit shorter. So if you set these side by side, it's not like the van's going to tower. It will tower over it, but it will not out length it. It's just a lot of times when you look at something like this, it seems so large just due to the height and the way the nose is and all that stuff. They're actually pretty small. One thing to remember, if you're dealing with a Chrysler product and you're not really familiar with them, this one's not so much a big deal. But you look on the end of the studs, if it's got an open lug nut on it, and you'll see the letter R, well obviously that's a right-hand thread. And if you're wondering why they do that, it's to denote it from the left-hand threads that came on earlier year vehicles. So typically about 1970 back, Chrysler products, I think it's on the driver's side, you'll have a left-hand wheel stud. And their theory was that they was keeping it from loosening over the course of time, rolling one direction. But either the bean counters or the fact they figured out that it has to be in the very center of the wheel and like a large single nut for that to actually apply instead of around the edge. Not a big deal. So they did save money by not having to make an extra thread or have somebody pay attention to put them in that side. But if you're dealing with something before that, on that one side, don't just go cranking on it with an impact or even a lug wrench. Just make sure it's got right or left-hand thread. Likely has the left-hand thread, so just a little reminder. Now, if you remember in the earlier videos, the reason we really went to this trouble the way we did was because the two idler arms was completely worn out. They were just shot. And then the steering box was actually shot. The input shaft on the steering column part of it was extremely loose, and when you would turn it, it sounded like it was grinding through like sand and gravel. This box that we put in it came from another Dodge van, a large sector box, pretty much the identical part number. It is a lot more taut, has better zones on it, I guess you could say, and so I feel pretty good about that. But we're going to see how it steers with everything connected on the ground as is. It used to make a horrible racket. It would clank, 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 and a grind. So I really like that. It is manual steering. Obviously the engine's not running and giving any kind of a power assist. And it's pretty easy to turn. Much like I said, it's dimension-wise not a lot different than a Duster. It's about the same length as far as the vehicle. The weight is roughly a little bit heavier. It is on a unibody structure, and the wheelbase is only 2 inches wider, or longer, I'm sorry. 2 inches longer. Now the width, it's a little wider. So I guess in theory that could shorten it up a little bit. But if it's anything like an A-body, the manual steering is not a big deal. You just gotta make sure you don't get your wrist in there and let it go and it comes around, break your wrist. But hey, manly vehicles for manly men. So in other news, we finally have a hood for a 72 Duster. It's a little rough, but definitely fixable. I'll say that, because it's got a little bit going on here. It's got these holes drilled in it, probably for a dual snorkel style hood scoop. But we can weld all that up, straighten all that out. The hood's in pretty good shape. There's just surface rust and one little area that's getting pretty thin, but it's not a big deal. A little bit of bang up on the front underneath the lip there, but definitely better than what I had, which was nothing. When I picked up this car, I had a hood on it that was bent completely in half and had a section of it cut out. I think it was on that side, big square section cut out. For 50 bucks, we had to run a couple states over to grab it, down into just north of Nashville. We bought it down there, went right down there, right back, and pretty happy with it. I mean, when we get to working on the whole thing, we'll deal with it then, but for now it's just kind of collecting some parts for it. And I went ahead and just kind of fit it up loosely. We do have some fitment issues as far as, you know, some other stuff going on here, not so much the hood, but it's a little bit of a hard grab here. This latch mechanism is so dry, and I drenched it in oil, penetrating oil, try to loosen it up. But up here, and the only part that's really kind of thin is right here, and maybe just some of these little sections here, but the rest of it's in really good shape. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy with it, and really nothing else to say besides that. Just collecting some parts for this car here and there. We do have a front bumper, even though it's not on here right now. Sounds good, doesn't it? You know the deal. You know how this old stuff is. So this car will definitely be a project. Emphasis on project when it comes around. Hopefully late spring, early summer, it'll be in progress. Now it might roll around to the front area of the garage, maybe sooner than that. It's reliant on us getting the van running where I can take it in and out of the garage on its own power. So hopefully the transmission will cooperate with us on that. I have no clue what the transmission's like in the van. And yeah, so stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. So I've lived at this location for 11 years now, I think. And one thing that my garage has that I've never taken advantage of is the fact that it has natural gas hookup. So I run over there by the door, the man door, and I have an exhaust pipe out the roof. So it's set up for a natural gas heater. Rob, who helped us with the fuel system video several weeks back, he works on that stuff for a living. He said, man, get your heat in here, get your heater. I'll hook it up for you. We'll set it up, get it in place. So I was like, hey, okay. After 10 years, and we got the Hoosier garage, we got all the U. We might as well do it now. So I went and found one. And the way I found it was we went on the old Facebook marketplace. This really nice lady actually had one. She's running a business. She didn't need it because she moved it from somewhere else, and the place they moved into had sufficient heat. So they was like, well, let's go ahead and sell it. And I want to thank you guys, because a lot of you bought t-shirts, decals, stuff like that from the merchandise link down below the video, and we just used that. So big thanks for you all for doing that. So let me get out of the trunk. We got to use this. Camaro's trunk is too small. Use the wife's car. It's got a huge trunk, but someday we'll be able to use the van or even the Duster. Gotta do what you gotta do. 75,000 BTU. I think that'll be enough for here. So here it is. It is a the name's already escaped me. I was kind of looking for a Resner. It's a Beacon Morris, and they ran a roofing shop. So they put these on there because they had a high roof and he was trying to direct it down. So right now, that might work in here until we get a ceiling in. So we'll just leave these on. It's just something they fabricated and pop rooted on there. And it's in pretty good shape. It's a little bit of rust on that one side. Might clean it up, make it look a little better. So yeah, here's our exhaust. And everything looks pretty good on it. So we'll talk to Rob about that. And since we're at it, there's our exhaust. So it'll probably hang here in this corner and aim out kind of catty cornered towards the middle of the shop. And then our gas, it comes in here. Move this junk out of the way. And there it is. And then Rob checked it out. It is active. It's plugged up right now, which is good. And I won't have to use the propane heaters. And they're very kind of spotty. You know, they do a really good job if you're right in front of them. The one thing we'll have to do, we'll have to frame this in. I'll put either a door here or a slide door. That way we can get back in here. And when we eventually put a ceiling in here and put some insulation, this whole area up here, our main primary work area, will be all sealed up and warm. And that's why last year, when I started doing the videos, I replaced the garage door. The other one went kaput, and it wasn't an insulated one, but this one is. And I made sure to do that with the anticipation of getting heat. And we'll have to thank Rob for nudging us, twisting our arm a little bit to go ahead and get it. Because I think he likes to hang out over here too, and he'd like to hang out over here and be warm. So that's what's going on. So anyways, that's it for this video. It's another little odd video, kind of almost a vignette video of multiple things going on. But I don't like to put out just like little small videos unless I really have to. But this is just kind of a continuation of what's going on at the Hoosier Garage and some of the projects here. So you all stay tuned. Make sure you subscribe, hit the little bell. And the bell part is important right now because we've got a video coming up that you'll really want to know when we upload a video, okay? So the bell next to the subscribe, make sure you hit that. You get your notifications. And again, check out our shirt, t-shirt, and the sticker, everything, all that kind of shop down below in the link. And hopefully you'll enjoy what we have. It's all custom, original stuff that I have created. So thank you all very much. Until next time.
We hope you've enjoyed the preceding short feature.